Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, it's September. We need to take a look at August data for San Mateo County. Let's go.
Yeah, so we're going to try to answer three questions, talk about prices, have to do that. We're also going to talk about the sales cycle. So I did this last month and people seem to like it. So we're going to talk again about where sales are and where they should be. And then again, sale to list price ratio, so the competitiveness of the market. So I'm going to start off with median price and just show what was a pretty decent drop there. So this is the second month of decline, and that was an all-time high. So 2 months of decline since that all-time high in June. It's a decrease of 7.5% from July to August. So that, it looks pretty substantial in this graph. I mean, if you want to kind of keep it in perspective, it's still 21% up. So median prices are up 21% since the beginning of the year. So there's still a lot of value in the market. In San Mateo County. It's just a decline. We typically see this about this time of year, and so this one's a little bit bigger. It looks a little bit dramatic, but there's still been a lot of price appreciation for sure. And so if you want to jump into the cities, right? So there were some cities in that best July. So August was better than July in these different cities. And when you look at it, like, you take a Menlo Park there at the top, there's been a lot of volatility. There was an all-time high in June, then a very big decrease in July, back up in August. So it's like really interesting to look specifically at some of these markets. Redwood Shores is third straight month of increased median price. And some of it, like Redwood Shores, 5 straight months of very high, like all-time prices, right? Really steady, really strong. So some markets are doing really well and have been. Other markets, as we transition to the ones that came down when comparing August to July, just couldn't hold some of those higher numbers. So more cities decreased in median price in August compared to July. But again, you have to take some of this into account where like East Palo Alto is a correction off an all-time high. Same for San Mateo, right? So when you have an all-time high in July, sometimes those markets correct. And we saw that in some of the top part of the list there for sure. And then you have kind of the bottom where San Francisco, I always want to call it South City, South San Francisco, on the other hand, 3 straight months of declines, right? So different markets are acting a little bit differently. And that's the problem with taking kind of a month over month view. It shows you what's happening up to the minute, but you also have to take a step back and say, well, where were we 60 days ago or 90 days ago? And is this normal? Is this typical? Or is it really on a straight decline? So that's kind of my message, my public service announcement for San Mateo County there, for sure. So this is median sale price for common interest. So same concept, right? The county, all very different from single family, went up. So that's the highest price we've seen since April 2020 in the common interest market, right? It's 8.5% up from July to August. And more than 20% up from the beginning of the year if you look at January. So both markets are plus 20% in San Mateo County, both the common interest and single family homes. This is just the opposite of what we saw in the single family market, where this is definitely not an all-time, but something we haven't seen for quite some time. So then if you look at the cities, and I apologize, I probably should break this up, but this is the common interest market, and it has both which cities increased, and which cities decreased in August. Some notables on this slide. So Belmont, that's not an all-time high. But we haven't seen a median price that high since June of 2019. Millbrae, haven't seen this since July of 2019. Menlo Park, 2 months of decline. So this is not just a comparison to a month ago. It was definitely declining. Redwood City coming off an all-time high. We see it decline a little bit off that all-time high. And then Half Moon Bay, 2 sales. So keep that in mind, that bottom part of the chart there, for sure. So very mixed in common interest, just like we saw in single family homes when you're talking about median prices, right in the middle, that middle point, median high, half above, half below for the median. Now, in terms of closed sales, so this gets to question number 2, where we say, hey, the market is in decline, right? And so a lot of times people mean that, and they mean sales, closed sales. How many sales closed in the month of August? And here we see, yes, so it's the second straight month of declining closed sales, right? So it looks like, and we won't know till the end of the year, but it looks like maybe June was the peak with 569. Because we've seen it decline ever since. Not sure, sometimes we get that fall bounce back. Sometimes we see it pop back up again. But that is a 9% decrease from July to August. But if you look at it relatively, Mark, it's higher than we've seen for the past 2 August. So it's 15% up from last year and 28% over 2 years ago. So in terms of August, it was actually pretty high. And we see the numbers. You can even see on this graph, right? It looks a lot higher than 2 years ago. Last year with the pandemic, these were the highest numbers we saw because this was the kind of the post-pandemic clear out. But anyway, so relative to August, definitely higher. Relative to the last couple months, definitely lower. And so we see that reflected in the data where you see a real mix. So these are the cities where there are more closed sales in August than in July, right? Which is not necessarily what you'd expect, especially a list like this, or in the case of Belmont and Millbury, where it was exactly the same. In terms of 15 sales in Foster City, we hadn't seen that since June of 2018. And then 29 in San Bruno, that's high. I mean, prior August have been 24, 19, 19. So definitely high. Burlingame up in August after 4 straight months of declines. So some of these cities are actually trending upwards. And San Mateo, 2 months in a row of increased closed sales. So it's not all cities in this cycle, right? Some cities are kind of bucking the trend. And this is decreased. So this is where, as we would expect, August didn't have as many closed sales as July. Half Moon Bay, that's been higher. Definitely than last year this time. So usually see 10.8, so 7's pretty typical. Menlo Park at 38, it's down from 52, but 52 was like the highest we've seen since May of 2020. Very unusual, right? 62 sales. But anyway, highest number since 2018. So it's second highest number for the last 4 years. So sometimes it's kind of hard to keep that momentum for some of these markets. For sure, if you move over to common interest closed sales, you can see here 193 sales in San Mateo County in the common interest market. That's the highest number of closed sales we've seen since at least 2016, right? So again, August was actually, tough compared to June and July in some cases, but higher. Look at all this green, meaning, more closed sales in August than July. I mean, Burlingame's volatile. We usually see 5 or 6. The last couple of months we've seen 12, 4, now 11. Same with Menlo Park. 14 is a lot of sales, so even though didn't quite reach it, but that's quite a few for that market. San Mateo, a tie for June with the highest number of sales since at least 2018. It just really depends on where you are. And I keep saying this, and I'm going to keep saying it for a while now, the weeklies, right? Because we talk a lot about kind of what does closed sales mean for going forward? What do new listings mean, the pendings and things? So my recommendation is to continue to watch those Aculist weeklies available on Tuesday mornings to see what's happening there. And so we're still trending significantly higher than we have been over the last couple of weeks. So look at that. So when you talk about the cycle, sometimes this has a little bit of insight in terms of where we are trending. And in the last couple of years, we've seen the next few weeks trend higher. So that'll be a very good indicator of whether we're following that cycle or not. So those are the first two. The last question, competitiveness in San Mateo County, and it's still very competitive. I mean, we saw a percent lost on the average. So what people are paying over ask lost about 1%. Second straight month of decline. So it's kind of following that median price trend. But it's still higher than what we've seen in the past several August. I mean, look at those numbers, right? So it's still competitive. It's just relative to the last month. These are the cities where the sale to list price ratio on average was higher than the month before, so July, right? So Burlingame, Menlo Park, both also up in price. San Carlos, even a median price and down 1% in sale to list. That tells you a little something. The rest of this list saw price declines, but are up in sale to list price ratio, right? So it might be interesting to take a look at some price decrease information or, something else to kind of tell you a little bit about what's going on in those markets where you see those mixed. Same thing with the decreases, right? So decreases in many cities in San Mateo County, but they're all up over 100%. Still, and then you take the cases like Belmont at 114, but 117 was the second highest sale to list price ratio that's ever been in the city, right? So same with San Bruno, 117, hadn't seen that since June of 2018. Those, you kind of have to keep in mind it's just losing a little bit. And then there's the alternative like Redwood City, third straight month of declining sale to list price ratio, which might actually tell you something about the competitiveness in that market for sure. And then finally, looking at common interest, and again, a busy slide. apologize. But you can see it all. Counties at 104%, down from 105% in July. So common interest market also lost 1%. That's in line with what we normally see. It was 101 a year ago, 103 2 years ago. It was 107 in 2018, right? So this isn't like all-time and from it's stuff, but still pretty high. Belmont 107%, highest we've seen since June of 2018, and a lot of the cities there are holding ground, right? So you see a lot of zeros there in that midsection, and then you see South San Francisco, for example, down, but 109 was a 2+ year high. Redwood Shores coming off a 1-year high. I mean, we see some markets correcting, Mark, but in general, it's very mixed. It depends on where you are, and it's going to stay very interesting, I think, for the rest of the year.
Absolutely, Michelle. Hey, thanks for being with us. Looking forward to seeing you next month to take a look at the September numbers.
Make sure to check out our Pro Support page for additional videos on a full range of topics. And don't forget to click that subscribe button on our MLS Listings YouTube page.